Hey guys, it's me, Rena from Snailworks Crochet, and in today's video, we are going to be making as many yellow things as possible. So, here's the thing. I have a lot of yellow yarn. I was kind of organizing my shelves recently, and I saw that I have way too much yellow acrylic yarn. And by that, I mean I have 3 Caron 1-pound skeins of yellow yarn, and I don't really have an excuse of why I bought them. I believe when I bought it originally, I bought it during the Joann's liquidation sale, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll need yellow at some point. And then I bought a ton of yellow yarn. So it's just sitting on my shelf right now, and I want to use it. And here's a couple of things. I've been really wanting to make those crochet everything in one color videos, like those color challenge videos, but I don't really sell things and I don't exactly have a specialty. And I was trying to figure out oh, what things could I make and how long of a time frame should I make it? And I figured let's start with yellow because I have the most acrylic yellow. And I might as well just make the items. I have a couple of things I might want to make for this video. I do want to make some scrunchies. I do want to make some hats, and I might want to try and make a shawl from acrylic yarn specifically. I know acrylic yarn shawl doesn't sound so great, but I mean, they exist, right? So those are the 3 things I want to at least make. I don't really sell my items, so it's a little bit weird for me to make items where I don't exactly have a purpose of offloading, but I'll kind of think of that solution later. Those are the 3 things I want to make: scrunchies, a shawl, and a hat. Just for reference of my yellow yarn, I kind of just cleaned this up. This is the vintage yarn from my thrifted yarn video. These three skeins right here are all Caron 1-pound skeins of yellow. And then I also have 2 of this yarn, the Lion brand Heartland yarn, which I think can be used for something. This is also from a secondhand yarn video. This I ended up getting from my friend. This is a leftover, I guess, quote unquote, scrap from my temperature blanket. And then this is a scrap yarn from when I did buy some rainbow yarn a while ago. Hidden behind the massive piles of velvet yarn, I do have a golden velvet yarn thing there. And then in here, with my cotton, I have I have every color of the rainbow for cotton yarn, so I definitely have a decent amount of yellow skeins here. Oh yeah, the other thing I forgot I wanted to make. I also wanted to make a tapestry. A yellow themed tapestry, so I'm gonna have to do some thinking on what type of tapestry to create. That is my yellow yarn. This is kind of the spirit of stash busting, so as I kind of think of projects, I guess I will take you along. I broke into my Caron 1-pound as well as some scrap brown yarn that is also Caron 1-pound, and I started knitting this colorwork beanie, which technically was not in my plan for using up yellow yarn because I wanted to make that chunky knit beanie, but I felt like making a colorwork beanie, and the colorwork pattern I'm using is coming from this book called The Art of Knitting Hats. I got this book back during the Joann's liquidation sales, and honestly, this is my most used fiber arts book ever. Highly recommend it, but there was a color chart in here, and I kind of modified the pattern a little bit because this is originally made with bulky weight yarn, and I'm using worsted weight yarn, so I figured I have just made a couple more pattern repeats. But this is a checkered beanie pattern that I'm making using the Caron 1-pound yarns, and I think it will look fantastic. So that is gonna be, I guess, project number 1 of my yellow video. I'm using brown for the brims, so that's why it looks mostly brown right now, but hopefully as I knit this up, it will be more yellow. So that will be yellow project number 1. Don't mind the mess on my floor. I ended up cranking out this hat pretty quickly, a lot quicker than I anticipated. So this is my first yellow item completed. I kind of messed up a little bit on the crown, but that's okay. It like barely fits. It's kind of tight, but it does fit. I feel like this is more of like a teenager sized hat versus like an adult sized hat, but I also have a big head. So I don't know. If you have a small head, this will probably fit you. But yeah, first yellow item done. It's quite nice. I really like the checkered pattern. Because I broke into like a Karen 1 pound skein, I very obviously did not use up all the yellow yarn, but I did actually finish the skein of the brown yarn that I used to pair with this. So that was kind of cool. Let's set that aside for now. Let's decide on my next project. So I am kind of in between either making another hat, you know, and this time it being a chunky rib knit beanie, or I might consider making one of those Japanese knot bags. I grabbed basically all of my yellow yarn, cotton. This is all my yellow cotton yarn. Most of it is kind of the same. I think these are like similar enough in shade where it won't matter too much. They're like just slightly different, you know? I don't know. I feel like, I remember one of these brands being a color match for the other, but I forgot, so I'm gonna have to look. Regardless, I actually have a lot of this cotton sprout worsted on hand. I don't think these are all the same color lot, but like these are actually a guaranteed color match with each other compared to these two. So like even if they look similar, I feel like they're all slightly different. I don't know. It's hard to tell in my opinion, but I'm gonna see what's like making that Japanese knot bag with this first, and if it happens to use like less of these skeins, I might consider making something more with this, but I don't know. That's TBD. I don't know what I use this for, but I probably won't use this for this video because this is all I have of this color.
Alrighty guys, let's talk about this bucket hat. Now, this is the first time I've ever used fusible interfacing. Like I put interfacing into different like project bags and stuff, but I've never had an interfacing that had to like fuse to fabric.
Hello. Anyways. Okay guys, two little updates on my yellow video. I have started on this moss stitch bag, right? It's kind of tiny, but you know, I know the bag is meant to be small. The pattern is fine. I'm at a mindless point right now, so that's not an issue. I just don't necessarily know if I ever want to make this again. I'm not the biggest fan of making bags, so that's kind of why, like, I make a bag once and then I never want to do it again type of situation. So, but, you know, it's a good way to use up cotton. The other update is that I started on a chunky knit beanie. So I am double stranding 2 yarns. Both these are the Lion brand Heartland yarn. This is like a gold color. This is a blue color that doesn't have a proper label. There's actually a couple of reasons why I have 2 projects going on at the same time. So when I was making my moss stitch bag, I started that whatever. But then I remembered that I'm leaving to go on a trip, and so I need some on-plane entertainment. And I have one project that I kind of work on when I am flying, but I do know I'm going to get to a point in that plane project where I won't be able to continue it until I land. So, to fill that gap in the meantime, for when that happens, I have 2 plane projects. So this technically is the plane project because it is very chill, very mindless. I can watch Netflix while I work on something, and similar case with the moss stitch bag. So those 2 projects are shoved in my backpack right now because I'm gonna leave in a couple hours. So that's my progress on the yellow video. I think at the beginning of the video I said I wanted to make a shawl and a tapestry as well. I'm probably gonna rule out tapestry just because I feel like I need to be in a mood to do tapestry crochet. But shawl, I've kind of been browsing some shawls a little bit, but I haven't committed to a pattern because specifically I'm looking for a shawl that would work up okay in acrylic yarn. So I need to do a little bit more thinking on the shawl pattern I want to use. But yeah, that's me checking in. I will check back in once I land. Couple of updates for the yellow video. I have this much of the bag made. I basically finished off a skein on a plane and haven't tied on a new one because the other skeins are in my carry-on luggage and didn't want to deal with that on the plane. I also worked a decent amount on this hat. I was up to here when I landed off the plane, and then further knitting in my trip I got this much done, so we're in a pretty decent place here. It's not looking as yellow as like a yellow video would entail, but this video is more focused on getting rid of yellow yarn versus like making things yellow, though it's kind of twofold, right? Like making yellow things and getting rid of yellow yarn. So I've gotten a decent amount of this gold, used for this. I know I could have double stranded the gold with like a different yellow yarn, but I don't know. I didn't like, this is shiny and the other yellow yarns are not shiny, so I kind of wanted to pair it with a light yarn, which is why I chose this blue. That's kind of my progress. It's really nice and stretchy and soft and squishy, which is nice, and it's also very easy to work on, so I like that. I do need to tie on another yellow strand here so that way I can continue working on the moss stitch bag. The thing is, I'm more likely to finish the hat than this bag on this trip because it's a very short trip, and because I've never made the moss stitch bag before, it's like I need more like mental energy to actually finish it. I feel like I'm almost there, but I'm not quite at the point where I need to like make the straps yet. I think this needs to be a little taller because if I go based off of my hand measurement, like this one is so long, whereas this one's like the actual length of my hand. And also if I fold it over, it's not quite a square yet, and I think it needs to be a square first before I add straps. So that's my progress. Overall, like the moss stitch is fairly mindless at least, so that's good. Maybe I should tie on the new yarn. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet.
Who pay an upfront fee and ongoing royalties, and they generally have a say in the sale or shutting down of any particular franchise. Now here is where the two sides tell very different stories. Debtor's estate. In both bankruptcy law and secured transactions, a creditor can ordinarily reach only the debtor's interest in property, not assets the debtor.
I have completed the Japanese knot bag. This is the Mosu bag. I finished this mostly in Houston, but also when I was home, I ended up just finishing it. It's fairly quick, and it ended up using about 1.5 skeins of the Premier Cotton Worsted Sprout. Or Cotton Sprout Worsted. I don't really know. Whatever this is. It's nice. I think, as I said before, I don't think I'd want to make this again, because I'm not a bag person. I don't like making bags, but it's cute. It functions as a bag. I also have this hat. It's looking more like a blue than it is yellow, but again, I think as I said, the point is for me to use up my yellow yarn, and it is definitely using up my yellow yarn. It's 10 inches. I think the pattern says 11 inches, but honestly, I think I might start now. I might do one more row and then call it a day. And once I finish that, I will go into what I'm gonna make next for the shawl I want to make, the acrylic yarn shawl. Okay, hat finished. Yay. I didn't do as big of a brim as Passionate Kelsey does, but honestly, I think it's fine. It's definitely big enough to fit at least a person with a small head. Anyone with a bigger head, you might have to not use the brim, but it's all good. I need to start looking around for shawl patterns that would look good with acrylic yarn, so I will be right back. Also, forgot to mention, I used up like about half of both of these skeins. They were full originally, but now they're half finished. So I probably could have used a whole skein of this, but I wanted to use different colors. I don't know. But yeah, that's how much yarn I used for this. I need to go recake this because it's floppy now. Okay, I have started on the shawl I'm working on. It is a free pattern on the hobby website. It is called The Veil Shawl by Kate Kosenko. It's free on the hobby website. Fun fact, I literally narrowed down my search to worsted weight yarn. I was like, oh cool, this shawl can be made with worsted weight yarn. And I was fooled. And it turns out that this shawl is made with like double-stranded mohair and fingering weight silk. So very different than what I was signing up for, but you know what? We're gonna make it work. So I have started the shawl. So I'm using a 6mm crochet hook and obviously worsted weight yarn. This is the Caron 1 pound. And I have started the shawl. It's pretty simple and I don't hate it. I will say it is very thick and dense, mainly because this is supposed to be made using fingering weight yarn and I am using worsted acrylic. So keep that in mind, but it's coming out quite nicely. How the pattern is split is that there are 3 parts. There is like a part 1, part 2, part 3. And I believe part 2 and 3 are kind of the same pattern repeat, except part 3 ends on a picot border. I am getting close to the end of part 1 right now, but based off of, you know, how big this is and just not meeting gauge at all and ignoring the recommended yarn weight, I have a feeling that I can get away with just doing parts 1 and 2 to get kind of the same dimension shawl by using worsted weight yarn. I will say, just look at this. I suspect that I will need to steam this because this is very chunky. A nice steam will go a long way for an acrylic yarn shawl. I have the pattern downloaded on my iPad because I am an iPad baby, but overall it's very simple to follow and honestly it's kind of chill.
And I mean, I have already made a couple, obviously, throughout the last vlogs, but now that we're sitting at 29 orders, a true mystery beanie, or if somebody else also bought a pink mystery beanie, we could send this.
Fun fact, I was completely wrong about parts 1 and 2 and 3 of the shawl. Part 1 is like the starting rows. Part 2 is like one type of pattern, and in part 3 is a different type of pattern repeat. So I am on part 2 and it's like yay big. I think just because of the lacy nature of this shawl, I think it's hard for me to gauge how big this actually is until I put in the row of treble crochets. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do part 2 and then I'm gonna do up to the row of treble crochets, because the treble crochets is essentially where I could have my stopping point if I wanted to only do part 2 and not do the part 3 repeat. So I'm going to crochet up to the treble crochets and then I'm going to do a steam block of it without, like, you know, finishing off the edges. When that is steam blocked, it's like a decent size, then I'll probably do the picot edging and tie off everything. If it's not the appropriate size, then I'll actually do the part 3 repeat. So that's what I'm gonna do, because the thing is that, again, it is hard for me to determine how big this shawl actually is just holding it up, because like it's kind of compact now, but I know this will stretch in steam blocking. It feels smaller than it actually is. And I know when I did the shawl swap video a while ago, I remember making my shawl and being like, okay, yeah, it's not that big. And then when I actually blocked it, I was like, oh, this is giant. So the shawl is definitely not going to be as big as my shawl swap shawl because that was absolutely giant. But I do want this to be like a standard size shawl, if that makes any sense. Shawls can be any dimension at this point, so I don't know. So I just steam blocked this, right? And you know, it's looking a lot longer and more appropriate shawl length, but it's simultaneously too short, but also like a decent shawl length. But I don't necessarily know if I want to do part 3 of the shawl pattern, and I've kind of ended it at the treble crochets, and I'm supposed to be doing a row of front loop only single crochet and then picot. But I think what I'm going to do the single crochet, and then I'll do another row of treble crochets, and then another row of single crochet, and then I'll do the picots. And then I think that will give it like the appropriate length. I don't really want to do the parts of the front post double crochets here, but I also don't want to just leave it at just this. So I think it needs maybe one more row of trebles to then tie it all together, and then I think that will be a good ending point. Okay folks, I have finished the shawl. It is very pretty and it's the size I want it to be. And so instead of doing the extra row of treble crochets, I realized there's a V-stitch part here. So what I ended up doing after the single crochet is that I did a bunch of V-stitches, and then I did V-stitch, single crochet, and then the picot edge right here to kind of lengthen this out. And I think it looks very good. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. After weaving in all my ends, I ended up having to throw it in the dryer because it was a little bit stiff, and throwing it in the dryer definitely helped it, like, you know, be more flowy and less stiff. Also, this is what's left of the Caron 1 pound, which again, I knew it was not going to use up all of that yarn, but I needed to get rid of my yellow yarn, right? So I think from that end, it was a success. Could I have used more and made the shawl bigger? Yes, but I did not want to. So there you go. But let's go over all of the makes that I made for this video. So obviously we have this shawl. We have this Japanese knot bag and 2 beanies. One regular chunky knit beanie that's easy, probably like for a small kid or something. And the other is a color work beanie. And that will conclude my video for today. Thank you for joining me. I'm hoping to kind of make this a video series of some sort and like go through all the colors of the rainbow, because I just really like watching videos like that. And it's funny because I'm filming this in June, but I'm definitely not gonna have like a whole series of color videos in time for the rest of Pride Month. But I hope to continue making more videos like this and kind of limiting my color palette to essentially stash bust, because this year, because I have bought so much yarn over the years, I think a big part of that is due to the closing of Joann's. I have been kind of focusing more on stash busting than I have on acquiring new yarn, which is why I haven't actually done any like yarn hauls or reviews. But regardless, I'm in a stash busting mood, and I'm hoping to make future videos like this one for different colors. And I'm still on the fence of what I want to do with the products I make from this, because some of them I can donate, like the hats and the shawl, but like something like the bag, I feel like I want to try selling on Etsy again to newer people. I do have an Etsy technically, but I just don't really focus on it a lot, though you can order some scrunchies on my Etsy. I'm debating if I want to add a couple of listings here and there, but I haven't fully decided on that yet, because my toxic trait is that I don't want to have to deal with the SEO and having to make the perfect product listing for Etsy. That's kind of the reason why I haven't been updating it. But that's a future problem. It's something I considered, especially for things like the Japanese knot bag. I don't really use bags, so I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. That's future me's problem. And with that, let's conclude the video here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!